Hello there, Who Dat fans. Welcome to Let's Talk Saints. First time in a while I've been live, so sorry if I'm a little rusty, but here we go. And I have totally changed in the last 24 hours what I was expecting to talk to you about. Because every time I think we've kind of put the Saints drafting a quarterback at 9 topic kind of to bed and ready to move on. And even in the case now with the draft a little over 2 weeks away, um, fairly good idea what's going on at 9 or what could be available and which way we may go, although we don't know for sure. I was planning, hey, let's start talking about 40. Let's start talking about the 2 third-round picks on day 2 and, eventually move into the day 3 stuff, right? No, but every time I think I'm done with talking about quarterbacks at 9, something happens and we all just kind of get pulled back in, right? So here we go. Should the Saints draft Shedeur Sanders at number 9? Because that story had steam a while back, kind of died down, started picking up steam again in this weekend, especially in the last 24, 36, 48 hours or so, really started getting some traction. And I think it's maybe just a good focal point to talk about Shedeur Sanders instead of just, generically should the Saints draft any quarterback at 9. Um, the big three, it looks like, is Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and Jackson Dart. I don't see how Cam Ward gets here. I don't. But we'll collectively consider him as part of the conversation. I'm not sure if it's worth it or not. So that big buildup for the answer of I'm just not sure because man, as I'm rolling this around and kind of looking specifically at Sanders because that's really the topic of conversation, like I said, but just kind of keeping the other quarterbacks and going in the back of my head. But all along, I kept going back to my very first initial impression of the 2025 quarterback class, which is, man, it reminds me nothing of the 2024 class's hype or the 2023 class's hype with the top two guys in Young and Stroud. This class collectively, starting in the college season and kind of working to the very beginning of the draft process, it felt meh, whatever. Like it kind of was in 2022. And that was the year of they were still trying to figure out, well, Kenny Pickett's the top guy. He should go in the first round, but when? And who's number 2? As opposed to this year with Dart, who's number 3? Malik Willis, Desmond Howard, Sam Howell's name gets thrown around. And come to find out, by the time the dust is settled and we get a couple of years past that draft, Brock Purdy's the best quarterback to come out of all of them. He was Mr. Irrelevant. We all know that. So this feels a lot like that. And when you're looking at collectively those top 3 guys, I think they all do stuff at a very high level. I think statistically, in watching them play over the last couple of years, you can kind of pick out what they do well. And all 3 of them do some stuff extremely well. And I think like the high point that keeps coming up, like for Ward, is his, that improvisation based on his run throw ability. Fairly mobile guy, can get passes off. Kind of crazy. Reminds you of a couple quarterbacks in the league that can do that. There's a handful. Sanders, that accuracy and that pocket presence. And I do remember, I did not, full disclosure, see a whole lot of Sanders in 2024, but in 2023, when I first saw him at Colorado, that was one thing that stuck out in my mind is his ability to stay in the pocket and kind of get hot throwing the ball and start zipping some dimes to some pretty good receivers that he had and putting up some big numbers. Dart is the guy I'm familiar with the most, full disclosure. LSU fan, SEC football. Basically he's 3-year starter at Ole Miss, basically saw him every week for 3 years in some way, shape, or form. And there's a lot I liked about him, but mostly, man, he brings some big playability, both as a runner. I mean, Ole Miss at times used him as a de facto running back, not unlike what Philly did with Hurts when even though they had a great running back in Saquon Barkley, and could make some Some big plays in the passing game, especially when he got a chance to really get downfield with the ball. So I don't know if there's a huge difference overall between the three. I do think they do in their skill set certain things they do better than others, and each one has kind of a different strength. And even on the bad side, their negatives are a little different. I think when you look at those three guys, my best case outcome, and I'm going to mention some names of quarterbacks, but I don't mean a direct comp like they do in the draft analysis. You know, this guy's play style or his numbers or whatever. More like bringing up the names of guys in the league drafted in the last 3 or 4 years that, or 5 or 6 years, whatever, kind of have all taken different paths in the NFL in their journey to be a starting quarterback. And I think all three of them fit in the for lack of a better phrase, the Kenny Pickett situation or better, which would kind of encompass Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, and it looks like Sam Darnold. And that's basically the first round guys that didn't start all that well for. But you see enough in there, and teams see enough in there, and they'll keep taking chances on them. And a lot of times it doesn't work out. I mean, it's never going to happen. But they are and I bring up Kenny Pickett's name because he changed teams, back up for Philly, got in a couple of games, and it's like maybe he's starting to figure it out a little bit compared to when he was that first round starter for Pittsburgh. But Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield definitely has gone through that route and laid claim to, hey, we're legitimate starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Sam Darnold kind of made his claim last year, and Seattle's taking him out for a spin to see if it's true. I think there's a more probable category that all three fit in, which is kind of the Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love path to a starter. Sit early. There's already a starter there. I don't necessarily want to use the word bridge starter, but a starter that obviously the team is thinking about, we're going to be moving on if this guy can develop. In the case of both Hurts and Love, yeah, they develop. They have taken over the starting job and proved, hey, we're starters, we can win games. I think Hurts really proved something. He won the Super Bowl. Your best case scenario, if this happens, you want to get the Patrick Mahomes, sit for a year behind somebody like Alex Smith, then show up and just keep making and winning Super Bowls. But, that's like the super golden lottery ticket. So I mention it, but, come on, that's unicorn territory there. But I think there's also a possibility you can kind of go the route of those guys that did start at rookies. I think they may be able to find something in those guys that you can build off of. They may show up their first year, and it may not always be pretty. And it likely won't be with any rookie quarterback for the most part, starting in as a rookie. So I wouldn't bet on that happening, but I definitely wouldn't bet against it. And equally in that possible category, and I think kind of the odds are probably a little shorter on this group, but they could become the next Trey Lance or Josh Rosen, the guys that Rosen's case, I think he's completely out the league. Lance is still back up trying to find his footing and work his way in, and it may not happen for him. But I wouldn't bet one way or the other on that happening for any of these three guys either. The real question, I think, is if the Saints pull the trigger at number 9 for Shedeur Sanders or Ward or Dart or whoever, but specifically focusing on Shedeur, are they prepared to make the commitment to say, hey, that guy is the future of this position in this organization, and pretty much having to go all in to develop him and the team around him to make that happen? I have no idea on that, but they better be. I mean, we haven't done this, since Archie Manning? Long time ago. Now, I got to think that anybody would have a brain in the front office or the coaching staff, and I would like to think they've got full brains. At least I hope so. They know this full well, but yet you see teams around the NFL, and if you want the two most recent examples, the shit show Carolina handed Bryce Young to start his rookie year, and even worse, the shit show that Jacksonville handed Trevor Lawrence for his rookie year. So it does happen. And I can almost, that might be the one thing that I can guarantee you is I don't think any of these three quarterbacks have the ability to overcome that if we do it to them. I hope that's full understanding from the front office and the coaching staff. But I got to think more Nussmeier. They're not dummies. They know better. They know if this happens, what needs to go with the second you call that name out at number 9. The other question I have, this is the big one. Are Saints fans, as fans, are we willing to be patient? Because there is a good chance you draft Sanders at 9, even if it would magically be Ward, even if you decide to pull the trigger on Jackson Dort, there's a good chance you will not see a payoff on that from 2026 at the earliest. And you may even have to wait as far as 2027. You may have to resign yourself that at times you're likely to see really good quarterback play, but there's going to be times where you see really bad quarterback play and just got to suck it up and take the lumps. Because this goes back to the first question. Are you willing to commit? That is our guy. That is the quarterback of the future. We've got to buy in. Got to be all in. And it may not happen. Probably the worst thing that can happen for any of these quarterbacks is to get the starting job week 1, have a similar week 1 and week 2 that we did last year, and then let the rest of the season play out with the struggles. Just saying. It could lead to a vicious scenario, and a lot of people who are banging the table for any of these quarterbacks and or even saying, hey, you got to take the chance on it. I don't necessarily disagree about taking a chance or a gamble at the most important position. Just not sure if these are the right guys or not. That's kind of what it boils down to do it with. But look, man, all fairness and honesty, I don't think you can say for sure without a doubt that one of these guys can't turn into a Bo Nix type scenario for us. I'm unwilling to write that off. That's what makes this so hard to say, should you do it? Should you not? Is it a good idea? Is it not? Do you pull the trigger? I'm kind of working through this. So I'm thinking, well, who falls to 9 that I can't pass on that I'm going to take Shedeur Sanders? I got to put Travis Hunter. I got to put Ashton Genty in that category, and I don't think either one of them gets anywhere near us at 9. Abdul Carter, definitely, and he's likely not even to make it out the top 3, it sounds like right now. Mason Graham's interesting, probably. That's a good, solid piece to stick in the middle of the D line, build up and around one really good piece on the line of scrimmage. And that's a place we were not good at last year, especially on the defensive side. You get a longer debate with Warren with me. I don't know. I go back and forth on that one, honestly. Will Campbell, back and forth on that, honestly. But I think I would pass, and I would take Campbell or Warren. You kind of get into that defensive back, the wide receiver range. There's always, and it sounded like the wide receiver may be flipping from McMillan to Golden or Burden. There's some talk there that like the Barron, Will Johnson conversation back and forth. It looks like Jahdae Barron is still the guy there. This is the point where I'm going, they could make sense. They could, but this might be the point where, okay, it does make sense. Let's pull the trigger on Sanders. The real kicker in all this is, and I mentioned this in a past video, and I think it's definitely worth mentioning again. Everywhere Kellen's Moore, he's been really successful working with a veteran quarterback that he's inherited. He's never got to pick his quarterback. That may have some play in all this. They may be willing, if he's going to throw the hammer down to the front office, go, Shedeur Sanders is the guy. We've got to have him. I want you to take him. Or Jackson Dart, or whomever at whatever point in the draft. He may be willing to really bear down on that and push hard for it because he does want, okay, I want my guy. I'm pretty good and I just won a Super Bowl, but then I'm really my guy. Every head coach wants their guys, right? So leave that out there that he could be the driving force. And if he is, and Nussmeier's on board, who's going to be a very integral part, much plus Scott Tolzien, who's going to be actually the position coach for him, all line up on board behind this. Look, we're predicating future success on the fact that we made good hires with these guys, and if they're going to throw their weight behind that decision to draft Sanders, I feel like we're almost have to support it at that point, and then wait and see what happens. Look, the bottom line is, and I think this is the biggest thing, and I just saw one question pop up that's right on point on this, but it's taken me a little while to wrap my head around that this is no longer the Brady, Manning, Breeze, Rodgers era of NFL quarterback. And that wasn't that long ago, really. 10, 12 years, kind of at its heyday before, you know, Manning got injured, Rodgers and Breeze started getting older. But I mean, you're talking mid 20 teens, right? Top quarterbacks now are Mahomes and Hurts and Burrows, Jackson, Allen. Those are your guys. When you're talking about the Brady, Manning, Breeze, that era, quarterback comparisons were always to those guys. And while it wasn't quite identical by any stretch, they were all kind of the same style quarterback. Similar. Skill sets were different. Again, they did some things better and others did other things better, but they were all pretty good. But it was very similar in their skills, very similar in the type of offensive schemes they run, very similar to a lot what you saw in the play calling. Everybody was kind of doing the same thing, but it was different enough that they were all getting there in a different way, is the only way I can truly describe it. It was guys like Mike Vick and Cam Newton that were outliers in the NFL. I'm looking at Mahomes and Hurts, and Burrows and Jackson and Josh Allen going, they all have more, way, way more Mike Vick and Cam Newton in them than the superstar quarterbacks of that Brady, Manning, Breeze era, Rodgers era. That's kind of what you're looking at. And I think everybody can kind of agree. They all share a certain degree of mobility with the arm, the ability to run, throw it, but their styles all are kind of uniquely different. You know, if I think in that, if you were to like just put them as shadows, like the Breeze, Manning, those guys that we were talking about from 10 plus years ago, it would look a lot alike. You'd probably be able to pick them out in a shadow box, but it would still look eerily similar, and some would probably look really, really close. If you put our kind of top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL today and say, you would know immediately which one is which. And damn it, they're all very good. And I think that, to me, that's kind of the process that's going on now, is making it harder and harder to evaluate these quarterbacks, because they are bringing that similar. We can throw it, we can run it, we're mobile. Even if we don't out and out run it, we can move around in the pocket, buy time, and if we have to, make some crazy throw to some guy that's going to be wide open and make a play for us. You did not see an awful lot of that in the other era. You saw bits of it at times with the guys who could do it. But now that's, I don't want to say a mainstay, but you see it in one game. You probably see it more than you would see in half a season 10 plus years ago. And I think that stylistic difference, they say in combat sports, styles make fights. I think in this case, styles are making quarterbacks. And more importantly, the quarterback style and the coaching, definitely, that they're going to be able to get on what they can do. What can you teach them to do better? You evaluate them and go, yeah, I don't know if we can do much there. So you know what? We're going to change the scheme around and not even ask them to do that and figure out a way around it, a workaround. And if he ever gets good enough and better at it, then we can add it back in. Now, it's kind of Kellen Moore's calling card over his career as an offensive coordinator. So to me, my opinion, kind of the long way to get to this, but what I am thinking is, my opinion is, I don't think I can do it unless a certain scenario falls out of who's not available for us to draft, that at that point, Sanders likely makes sense. But I don't think that's the best scenario you want to draft him on, because I do believe, as I stated, you got to be all in from the jump. You got to be ready to go. And I have to, I guess, kind of tell myself that even though I may not be on board with it, if that coaching staff is going to get the front office on board where they're all going to be behind and really say, we're taking a quarterback at 9, he is the guy we're going to build around. At that point, the only thing I can do is just get on board with it and pray that I'm wrong and they're right. I really, really, if that scenario happens and we do take Shedeur Sanders at number 9 overall, I may literally pray every single night, please, I want to be wrong on that, and I want the organization to be right. That's kind of my take on all this. So deep down, I'm not 100% on board, but I don't directly have to coach him or do anything else, so I don't need to be. But I'm going to have to put myself in that position at that point, if that's where the trigger gets pulled. Now, go on. Yeah, it was actually the first question from Becken. Was asking, the days of scrambling quarterback coming to an end. I do not see that happening anytime soon. In fact, that's kind of one of the things on, I saw something the other day that all of these 3 quarterbacks, and I'd be willing to say, I wish they'd have showed a comparison to NFL quarterbacks. How much play action, I don't know if you heard that, but the cat's freaking out behind me. I don't know how much play action affects on the pro level, but they were bringing up, and not only the top 3 guys, but pretty much all the college quarterbacks, and showing they all have a high level of success. Now, it may be in different areas, whether it's the deep ball or the short pass, whatever, coming off play action. Most of them, if not all of them, if that's coming out in this draft, can run and scramble. So I think smart coaches, especially seeing what these guys do in college, they're not only that's not going to be eliminated, they're probably going to be encouraging it. And in the case of somebody like Jackson Dart, or the ultimate Jalen Milroe, we had mentioned him. In fact, he came in for the visit with the Saints today. And dear God, not 9 overall, but there's a guy further back that if you draft him as a project, you're getting a running back. I mean, you're getting a running back with an arm. Can you get him along to the level where he can use that arm to make plays for you in the passing game with accuracy and everything else? I think guys like him, scrambling around, throwing the ball, probably going to be in a playbook at some point, more or less. Hey, good to see y'all, Northern. Yeah, we may talk about it at the end, but yeah, I had to take a little live stream sabbatical. Part of it was I had to change over software, and that's just always fun for somebody like me who's not really great at dealing with software. Yeah, I figured you meant live, not love. So from Northern, it's a little premature, but I'd like to see the best. I um I can't argue with that, because to me, and we've said, I don't think anybody has really looked at the Saints up and down roster and go, look, whether it's going to be some type of hole in 2025, and obviously we're rolling it back. We're trying to win this year. So a hole this year is a big need. But even looking, well, look, you may get by with, in the case of like defensive linemen this year, man, you're got a lot of them going to be over 30. I mean, I'm being generous. There's some of them are even older than that, to your point. Even if it isn't Mason Graham, the guy playing next to him at Michigan is pretty damn good too. Just kind of getting a first round grade. Seems to be projecting, in the middle round. Do you make the reset? Hey, what the hell is difference? Let's take him at 9. I mean, offensive line, we know that's shaky. We don't know how much of non-bad play last year. I mean, it's at times we did play very, very well, but at times we didn't. So let's just call it average, give or take above or below average, somewhere in that vein. Some of those guys on that line, possibly everybody not named Derek McCoy when he was healthy, how much of that was a product of the system and John Benton and the rest of that coaching staff of what they were doing? Because this is going to be completely different. And can the coaching staff we bring in, are they going to be just as good and go, not a problem? We can at least get them at that level and maybe get them a little better. But to your point, I would like to add a stud there somewhere where you don't have to worry about it. Well, Campbell might be that guy. So I get your point there, and I cannot honestly disagree with it. And that's what I said. Even for me, taking a quarterback at 9, Graham, I got to take. Campbell, I think you may be right. I think you might take him, in my opinion. We'll see what those guys do. 2 or 3, maybe. Tight end, Warren, kind of I mean, he is who he is. And then Loveland is the guy that everybody thinks, I think he doesn't necessarily show the production overall, and some of the stuff is Warren, but there just seems a lot of people saying it's going to be there. Don't worry about it. In late first or early second. But it kind of sounds like he's probably going to fall somewhere in the first. And then after that, you start getting into some guys that I think it's just going to depend how much Taylor, Ferguson, Fannin, you know, uh, the ones that leap to mind, but Arroyo. It's literally going to be how the other teams view them. So I don't think they'll all go in the second. They may go in the third. And I think the wide receivers are starting to get a little muddled. And that may be something I don't know if we can really get into depth to tonight, but that may be something we talk about later in the week. Shout out to, I forgot in the comments who told me about Steve Smith's assessment of uh, Teteroa McMillan from Steve Smith. I mean, I'm not saying he ain't the number one guy, but Steve and his evaluation as an ex receiver, he gives you some stuff to think about. I think there's some about edge rushers, huh? Yeah, edge has got to be some type of address somewhere in here. I just don't know when it's going to happen. Unless some kind of way we can get our hands on Abdul Carter, then I'm not worried about it. And that may be I don't think we've ever had the double dip conversation. In one of the mocks I posted, I did double dip, which for those of you who don't know, that's basically taking 2 of the same position in the draft. They kind of commonly refer to it as a double dip. Saints don't do it often, although technically we did it last year with Fuaga and our 7th round offensive tackle, who I'm pretty sure is still on the roster, Josiah Aziram, I believe. Didn't see much of him. I kind of blanked on his name there for a second. But we don't do it often because I read in an article, some teams do it more than others. But I got to wonder if you don't get one of those top edge guys, and specifically, we have a lot of big-bodied edge guys, obviously. Cam Jordan, Granderson, it's more about those. Everybody had bendy, smaller speed rush guy. So if you don't get the top guys of that, it may be in the 4th round. And in that mock, I did that where you just take 2 of them and go, God, if we get one right, we're way ahead of the game. If they both happen to hit, and in most cases, those are the guys you draft, and they're only going to be there to rush the passer. They're probably not, at least initially, as rookies and second-year guys bring anything else. As long as they can get off the quarterback and, I don't know, grab hold of them and get them on the ground. So put that in the back of your thought. I just don't know, since we don't normally do it, if the Saints would even be willing to do that. Thanks, Donastelli. That is one where if I were to in a try to compare a running style of the top three, that would be Jackson Dart and um, Jalen Hurts, kind of similar, and styles maybe a little different. I'm not really sure who's faster, who's a little bigger, but they're really, really close in build and athletic ability, I think. The interesting thing is, Hurt, we had mentioned this way back in the process somewhere in one of the videos. Hurts was always, I mean, he was Hurts. There's no doubt about it. He was going to help you put a lot of offense up. But what Kellen Moore kind of did with him in Philly, bring more of that running game, especially focusing more on Barkley, scaling because like their overall passing numbers, number of attempts, yards, everything else went way down to what Hurts had been doing, but his efficiency numbers went through the roof. And that's exactly what they did. They were focused a lot on Barkley, but they could run with Hurts. They could get defenses very uncomfortable about stopping a run and dealing with Hurts. And then all of a sudden, like you're saying in the Super Bowl, all of a sudden, dagger, boom, over the top, one play touchdown off of play action. And Kansas City's back was basically broken at that point. And as long as Philly didn't screw it up, they were going to win. And they didn't screw it up, and they definitely won going away. That's a lot of what Lane Kiffin has been doing the last 3 years in Ole Miss. Running the ball with running backs, kind of a run first team, a lot like Philly has become, but being so good at it and having a quarterback Dart in college at Ole Miss, sort of like what Jalen Hurts did. Now he threw the ball more at Ole Miss than Hurts collectively, but still being that dangerous weapon in the running game, but being able to throw the ball to guys like Harris, Trey Harris, who's a receiver in this draft, and until he got hurt, and putting up big numbers. So I can see that comp a lot. It may not, sort of like we were talking about earlier. Nowadays, it's hard to just that style of quarterback because they can do so much, and some of them very similar, and some. But I think he's one of them that, yeah, I think you pull him up next to Hurts, and you're going, yeah, they can do a lot of the same things really, really well. It's a baseball. Yeah, it's still a little early for me to get into the baseball swing of things. It normally happens around May or June when it like feels like baseball time. Just still seems like late March, early April is too early. If we pull the trigger, does it possibly mean we're going to truly try to rebuild? God, I don't know. I just don't know. But I would think I look at some point it's going to get taken out of their hands. They're going to have to do it. So I would. It's almost like you might have two different draft scenarios. That if you do draft, say Sanders at 9, like we're kind of base this whole idea on, your later draft maybe a little more about starting the rebuild this year with like Northern was bringing up offensive lineman, defensive lineman to help out there, receiver, tight end, whatever that's going to look like. But at the same time, they're rolling it back. I mean, they seem to have made that clear. No, we want to be competitive. You draft guys to fill holes this year. You probably could start to rebuild with that, but I guess it's just going to look a little different. But at some point, it's going to get taken out of their hands. Demario and Cam and Honey Badger and Taysom, and I'm trying to think of some of the other on this list. They're just not going to be able to play forever. At some point you got to address it, and at some point you're going to lose guys to free agency and all that other stuff. I'd be patient if they have an end goal back and act absolutely. And I think you may be hitting the nail on the head there. I think if you had a logical presentation from the front office, or even if we believed wholeheartedly that they learned their lessons over what they have been trying to do, that there is an end goal in sight that again they're trying to achieve. I think it would buy some good faith and patience with the Saints fans, but I mean, honestly, that's kind of not what they're selling right now. Short side draft pick, Justin Fields. Jury's out. Bryce Young. Trey Lance. Still fighting. I forget he left Dallas. Somebody else got him. He's still fighting on it there. Um, Williams, if he can't do it this year with what they've kind of revamped on offense, and of course with Ben Johnson, then it's going to be problematic. But I kind of say he might fall into that category of that both young and and I forgot about Justin Fields. He kind of went through a similar thing his first year in Chicago too, but I don't think quite as bad as Trevor Lawrence and Bryce Young did. But there were some issues last year that Caleb shouldn't have to deal with in Chicago that he had to deal with. Um, Daniels, May, and Nix right now. Well, see now that the league has a full season of film on him and is going to spend some time adjusting to him. This is where you're really going to see, I think, in that second season, because some adjustments are going to come at them, and they're going to have to accordingly probably improve or change some parts of their game, all part of being an NFL quarterback. And I think in most of their cases, the offensive coordinator slash guys working with the quarterbacks know that already and probably have them going, okay, hey, here's the next step. This is what you need to do. I know Shedeur looked lazy and overconfident. His pro day, lazy, short passes. Teddy Bridgewater syndrome. Do not look bad at your pro day. That can kill any momentum you might have of getting drafted. Yeah, I didn't see, so I can't honestly comment on that. Literally saw very little of anybody's pro day because I'm just of the opinion, and it's not necessarily because I think pro days are bad or useless or anything like that. I think it's just at the point where the player, especially a player that wasn't showcased like he thought he should have been running the drills and all, or put up the numbers in the 40 or whatever you want to call it at the combine, getting their second shot, or definitely showing these guys, look, let's run these drills, the pass routes, whatever, because this is the stuff I really, really do well. You need to see that. So I just kind of assume the player is going to look good at his own pro day. And like I said, Teddy Bridgewater did not at his way back in the day, and it kind of hurt his draft stock. So, um, where does he fall in? Short? Yes. I think he's 6'2". I think all of them are around 6'2", 6'3". I think he's a little light. He's a little undersized, weight wise, compared to Ward and Dart. But I don't think there's a great big height difference that I know of. And normally I would tell you let's go look up the measurements, but the measurements have been all over the goddamn place this offseason about how long, how tall, how much they weigh, or what 40 do they run. So I don't even know who to believe at this point anymore. So you may be right. He may actually be shorter. I don't know. When you miss, talking about those guys that you miss on, um, yeah, it's devastating. Especially if the team wasn't right to begin with and they were drafted to be the savior and couldn't do it. And honestly, not many quarterbacks could. Puts that said team even worse because now the rest of the team still isn't good. And what kills me, and you never know which one of those guys, just as the circumstance fall, got put in that crappy position. I think you say the same thing about Baker Mayfield and Geno Smith, definitely. And then they kind of run around the league a couple of different spots and get back in and get into the right situation. And people were going like, holy crap, look at this guy going, the teams that drafted those guys in the first round, that might have been what they were seeing, but it was the team and the coaching and the organization itself that didn't come through and allow these guys to succeed, especially if you were planning on starting them as rookies. um, I would say this about, okay, I think at 40, and I do not see those three by hook or crook still being there at 40. But let's just say one of them is. part of me goes, at that point, if nobody was willing to take him and nobody was willing to trade up for him, I'm going to be scratching my head going, and that means I passed on him once already to get to that spot. See, and I think that's the other thing that can happen to quarterbacks that, you know, it's like Costner and Draft Day. If you've watched the best, worst movie ever about football, um, what's wrong with him? Go find out what's wrong. What's wrong? What don't we know? Type situation. So they start falling. I'm getting concerned. Yeah, the second, third, or fourth round pick is then I'm starting to think, yeah, that's when you draft them. But who knows? Oh, where's Sweetie Pie? She was sleeping in her room last I saw, and the way she likes to sleep, I'm sure she's still there. Yeah, and I don't know. He's normally hanging in around here somewhere, but and I don't know if y'all caught that. He came rolling up and was meowing about something. So there's probably some crisis over there, and he's mad at me right now. So we may not see him. Akeem Batiste. What's happening, man? Cam Ward is absolutely the only quarterback worth getting drafted around one. I, you know, I'm gonna put this out there. Um, Seems to be he is the only one that everybody's collectively getting behind. Um, I think the other two has gotten thrown around. And I'm wondering this. You bring up the question. This is what I'm kind of wondering. If we spend a large time watching teams and analysts and everybody else talking themselves into, again, I bring up the 2022 draft class, trying to talk themselves into Desmond Ridder should be a first round pick, trying to talk themselves into, Malik Willis or Sam Howell being first or even second round picks. So, yeah, good point. And I think to a certain degree, again, I'm talk about Kenny Pickett, likely the best quarterback, maybe first round pick, possibly a high second. Um, but I just don't think he was done by kind of, that was one of the few times Pittsburgh kind of screwed up, putting stuff around him and building an offense around him and see what he can do coming back. I don't know if any of these other guys, I feel like they could be in that boat, but I feel like if you're the team that drafts them first, you might be the one that takes the lumps of a bad draft pick and somebody else later on may benefit. So, um, I, I like Milroe in this sense. Again, like I said, he's like a de facto running back that can throw the ball. Um, and at times in his college career, he falls into the category, has looked really good throwing it and looked really bad throwing it. And it's probably going to need some work and some development. I kind of feel like not that far away from Anthony Richardson, who was taken very high in the first round. So, you tell me you get a guy like that you can put somewhere, and especially more and more feel like going back to Beckon's question about the scrambling. Hey, more and more that's going to be the norm for a while in the NFL, and if you can get a guy that can do that, that's going to take a couple of years to get to the level where you need him, you got to start spending some draft capital on that. Like you say, and at a certain point on that day 2 or early day 3, you may just have to keep grabbing them until you find them. So yeah, Keem did bring up a great point there. Number 9, I like Will Campbell, Will Johnson there. Um, yeah, I agree. The day 1 sorter. Um, if you're going to, and it sounds like if you were in charge, you would go, no, if it ain't Cam Ward, if I can't get to number 1 and take Cam Ward or somewhere in the top 3, if by chance he isn't taken first overall, looking for those starters. Like I said, Carter, Genty, Hunter. And Hunter's interesting just because where do you play him? And I'm of the opinion I don't care. I think he's going to be really, really good regardless. May even be a case draft him first, figure out what side of the ball you're going to use him on. I'd just be a little hesitant to try to use him two ways. But if anybody can do it, he probably could. Um, Graham, I like and have been. I've been kind of on the Jedi Baron bandwagon for several weeks now. Not tooting my own horn or anything, but just going, man, I love the fact that he could play inside of Texas. He could play outside of Texas. Some Texas coaches are now working on the defensive side of the ball, and he's so versatile. But Will Johnson, by all accounts, if he's healthy, and I still don't know if that's ever been resolved, if he's fine or not from the foot. I believe it was a foot injury he got last year that knocked him out for the rest of the season. That if he's 100%, and you look at him and go, yeah, you don't need versatile. He's just going to get on one side, play a corner, and that's that. Good luck throwing at him or dealing with him. Johnson McKinstry sounds pretty awesome also. And would definitely put where I think Alontae Taylor should be, which is on the inside, because that's where he's looked his best in his Saints tenure. Came with some gems, and I know some of those names bringing up there. I like Trey Amos. I do. If you miss on the corner spot, talking about a battle-tested guy with some of the stuff he's had to deal with year in Ole Miss, what was getting thrown at him. I'm going to hold on Mason Taylor for a second. Love Jack Sawyer. And he is, I don't quite know because he, again, is kind of that smaller defensive end, and we're talking about that explosive pass rush off. He's explosive as compared to some of those guys. However, he, from what I've seen in Ohio State, and really been following where he's been at, because I think he is in that day two category somewhere. Somebody is going to love what I like about him. That is a relentless dude, man. I honestly, would he may lack in the ability to kind of bend that tackle and whip around and get in that backfield real quick, which is kind of some of those 3-4 edge rushers you're looking for. And there's like the kind of guy, he's not going to care. He's just not going to quit. He can be physical. And I like the fact he can, at Ohio State, showing what he can do in a pass rush. And he played a run and played pretty well. Emory Jones, I love. And I thought he might be a sneaky day 3 pick as interior. One thing, he was kind of one of the guys that when he showed up at LSU, they kind of projected him to be a guard. And he had to start as a freshman at right tackle. Turned out he's pretty good at it. His sophomore year, they brought in a freshman, I believe, if I remember his name was Lance Hurd, thinking he was going to eventually take over right tackle and they were going to be able to kick Emory Jones inside. That didn't quite work out, and he ended up staying outside the whole time. And I noticed right away one of the first things they did when I was watching the Senior Bowl coverage is they started working him inside at guard. And I went, so it was kind of like that was always projected to be his natural position. So what I love about him is you might be able to kick inside the guard like that if you need guard help and be okay with it. There's plenty of experience as a tackle. At the very least, you should get a very serviceable swing lineman, an Andrus Peat type who bailed us out over the years several times, being able to play inside and outside and not have to burn a first round pick on him and get him at a later pick. Love that idea. And he's not the only one. I know there's some other tackles projected to play guards, but could still play tackles a little later in the draft. But he's one I'm very, very familiar with. Mason Taylor, I keep saying, is a raw mold of really good clay. That when he puts it all together and figures it out, he really has a chance to be up there. People look at his production, and I don't think he was bad at LSU. It was just most of his career he was fighting with, I don't know, some really good wide receivers that are running around all over the NFL, making highlight reel plays and dropping huge numbers. So he was never significantly the focal point of the the offensive attack. But he could be a thorn in anybody's side. He was athletic. He showed good strength. He proved that in the combine through some and his pro day threw some good numbers in there. And I think he might just be a guy you're still gonna have to wait on him a little bit. But if you're willing to draft him and go, look, he's gonna play some, but again, this might be the case of building for the future. He could help you in 2025, there's no doubt. But 2026, 2027 is where you're really looking for him to go, boom, I got it. Got it all together now. Rosenfield 10. I'm big in best player available at 9. Yeah. Excuse me a sec. Oh, the trading down question. Okay, good. I was glad somebody brought it up. I was in the back of my notes to bring up last, but I figured somebody was going to have this conversation. And your next point, that would be unlike Loomis. But to be honest with you, this is the draft that when you get around, and this question could be asked depending on who you're looking about, who the legitimate top guys are. Roughly 9, 10 to somewhere in the middle of the first. And then from there, it's still some football ready guys, but that projected starter kind of keeps getting pushed back a little bit about when they, like Mason Taylor, you might have to wait a year or two, or halfway through the season, or you get some guys hurt and you force to throw them out there, start holding your breath going, is he going to get to where we need him to be, or does he still need more time? I see nothing wrong with trading down if you have one question mark. And if it's at 9 and we really have the question mark about, okay, the top 8 guys are going, we're 8 guys we would have drafted, none of them are here, move them back down a little bit. Adding a little draft capital, whether it's next year, which is projected for whatever it's worth to be a deeper and better draft class than this one, or just heading your bets going, well, if we got to draft one guy, we're like, don't really know, but we can go down, grab one, and pick up some draft capital in this draft so we can grab 1 or 2 more. Law of averages, we ought to be able to find some guys that could fit that mold this year, but if not, are going to be good football players that we can use this year and maybe able to develop into what we need over the next couple of years. I think one of the key things the Saints have been poor at, and I don't know if anybody would disagree with this statement, is developing young players. And then once you get them developed, keeping them in the goddamn building. Hopefully that's a focal point. And I think this is a draft where you're going to find some of those. And if you have a good coaching staff and a good development plan, by the end of their rookie contracts, you're going to be going, you know what? Instead of letting them walk to Philly and help them win a Super Bowl, let's keep him in the building and see if he can't help us win games. Guess everybody knows who I was talking about there. Rosenfield? Yeah, I think he's here. I think that's who just, popped the question. Heck. Yeah. Akeem definitely need to build this roster to continue. Yeah. I'm not. I am still going on record until I am proven wrong, and I hope this is another thing I may have to pray nightly for. Please let me be wrong. This is not a roster that's going to contend for the NFC South title, much less anything else, as of right now. But we'll see. Sorry, had to throw that in there. But definitely need to build this roster to contention. It's the GM doesn't believe in going backwards to go forwards. And I don't know if I want to push back on the statement, but maybe say I don't know if it's backwards if you really go forwards as much as we got to fix the motor before it goes forward. If you know what I'm saying, it's like we have no ability to go backwards, forwards, or sideways or anywhere else because we've got some broken stuff that we just keep ignoring or putting a patch on it, hoping it holds up for 17 games. Neither of which is happening a whole lot the last couple of years. But I kind of get your point that our GM absolutely has to acknowledge that's going on to be able to fix it. And I really think Beckham brought that up earlier, and this kind of fits into it that if they were showing that, the fans would be patient and go, okay. It's almost like we collectively see, and we may not know the exact issue, but it's one of those things. I know it when I see it, and there's issues with the roster, you know, that need to be fixed. And yeah, insanity's been thrown out there, just big ego, combination of both, whatever. But yeah, at some point, you know, and look, if I'm wrong, if he has realized that and they are trying to do that and it magically happens, I will happily have a live stream of Tim was wrong and eating crow because it turns out Mickey did get his shit together this year, even though I'm one of the champions right now thinking, yeah, no, he's not. I would think best guess they're going to at least try to they ain't trying to mix it up where you're going to see even in odds. And look, as well as it worked last year at times for Philly, don't be surprised if you don't see a 5-man front. That little 5-2 looking thing they had. Of course, Zach Bowen, and I'm blanking on the ex-Georgia linebacker that played next to him. But both of them were pretty good and athletic enough that they could do that. I don't know if we could get away with that with DeMario and Pete. It's an option. We may try. Who knows? I also know Staley, and I think we talked about this. He's kind of when he was doing his thing, especially in San Diego, was a kind of it was a 3-4, but it was at times creative in the way he could use players and or try to get players to play, kind of almost multiple positions or multiple spots or, you know. So I think that's what we're looking at until they, you know, and I guess if we rebuild, if we want to play straight 3-4 or do more what he did in San Diego, and I keep saying San Diego, guess it was Los Angeles, wherever the hell the Chargers are. Um, the stupid Charger team, those guys. Um, they're gonna take a little bit of a rebuild to get there because especially up front, just don't think we have enough of the right personnel to keep doing that. So to your point, yeah, I could see the mix and match part of it. And look in this draft, we may get some of those guys that rookies that are a little more in the scheme of the 3-4. Yeah, there's no doubt Kyle McCord can throw the ball. Um, I don't know, really. In fact, I've read places where like he is the best arm in the draft, and it wouldn't. I don't necessarily think wrong, and I think easily one of the best arms in the draft. I think his biggest probably thing that people talk about is his propensity of turnover worthy plays. A little bit of a gunslinger there. I feel like that probably can be coached out and fixed. And he is the guy everybody's talking about that the best guy nobody's going to draft in the first 2 days. And regardless of what you do at quarterback, um, it's a double dip scenario. I mean, I don't really know what we're going to do at 6 and 7. Really, I got that far down the draft board, but I think at this point, with this draft's going to tell you it's either going to be a sneaky draft pick, like somebody um, like Bobby Slowick and Frisco all those years, just being all over Brock Purdy and wanting him to draft him in the 7th round. So if somebody like that, or it's going to be some hit and miss. So I can't see McCord gets into the 3rd day. Somebody's not going to just take him, even if they have an answer at quarterback or they drafted, the double dip, drafted one in the 1st round going, why not hedge our bets? Ah, all right. Rosenfeld, high on Campbell, Mumbai. Mumbao's interesting because I just keep reading about how awesome he is in the zone scheme, which I don't know. I know he said. I know Moore said he wants a combination of both. I mean, if they feel like, and that was from the introductory press conference. Probably everybody remembers and heard that part of it now, but it almost seems like he wants to just be real balanced between zone and gap slash man schemes, blocking schemes, unless circumstance dictate to go heavy one way or the other. So he's interesting because a lot of people said, as far as like from the pure zone scheme from the tackle spot, yeah, he's your guy. He's really, really good at it. Jihad Campbell, love Jihad Campbell. Love him. I just don't know if I've got the balls to say the Saints should take him at 9. It would tip me on the edge with him. He's a guy on the radar, but I don't know if he's worthy of a top 10 pick. But I was watching this live when this happened at the combine, when after he did all his linebacker work, and I think pretty much checked the box on everybody going, he's probably the best off the ball linebacker here, depending on how you're viewing Jalen Walker. And he grabs some of the scouts and all and says, hey, I want to run some of those defensive edge drills that the edge guys run, right after he finished working out. I think I mentioned this before. It starts balling and doing that. And it's like, you got to like a guy like that. I mean, and just high motor guy, very athletic, and seems to be going to be able to help you whether you need him in the run game, you need him in the passing game, whether to rush the passer or defend against the pass. He checks a lot of boxes. And DeMario's not getting any younger and going, he could be the guy that you grab and go, yeah, even though DeMario's going to be sticking around, we're building for the future. I do like Barron. Green is so interesting. And that's edge rusher, in case anybody doesn't know Mike Green. He would be the guy where we were talking earlier, a couple of questions ago, trade down and maybe go, he'd be a guy. And then with those extra picks, like we were saying later on, double dipping into like some of those guys down there. So not cold on Genty. I'm assuming you're probably saying not sold on Genty. Yeah, I've bought into Genty heavy. Warren pretty heavy. Was buying into T Mac heavy, but been pointed out by was it KBR? Was that you or KB Free that brought that up in the comments for me to track down the Steve Smith stuff? And I don't know if I'm backing off McMillan, but it it was worth going. Well, made me question what I thought I knew. Put it to you that way. Pretty handily. It's Rosenfeld, D line and wide receiver, cornerback. Yeah, pretty deep early, deeper than some other positions early. I think D line. If you're going to talk about them collectively, and you probably should, because sometimes depending on scheme, somebody they're calling an edge, Landon Jackson comes to mind. Like if we were staying straight 4-3 that we've ran the last years, I'd be going grab that dude. He's bigger, and I don't think he would really play fully on the edge. He'd probably be more of a 3 technique guy, and he may still be worth a guy you want to take. I've liked him in Arkansas for years, going, God, that is a dude on that defensive line. Think the overall depth is running back. And if you could tell me for sure you pass on Genty and you're going to get, Marion Hampton or Judkins maybe, but I like Henderson. I like Sampson. I like Dates. I mean, you rattle off quite a few running backs you like that even though should complement what the Saints already have, if not full on, hey, I can be the guy. Yeah, then I'll pass on him. I'm just wondering how many of those guys, I keep hearing round three from an analyst, and I'm going, look, the NFL isn't stupid. It's becoming more and more of a running league, and more you need good running backs. And there's a lot of them in this draft, I'll give you that. But how many of them aren't going to go in the second round? So just to throw that out there, if you want a really, really good one that you don't take Gentry with early, you might want to seriously consider the one at 40, depending on what the board looks like. I think Jack. A lot of people say Mason Graham, and it kind of makes sense to go because they got some pretty good guys on the edge and help out in that running game. But um, Campbell, they have their own uh, Olaquan. Their middle linebacker used to be with Atlanta and terrorizes us there. Went to Jacksonville and has been really, really good. He's another one probably getting up there a little bit. And yeah, somebody like Jihad Campbell fits the mold of what he can do, which is pretty much everything. And again, they may be willing to go, yep, looking at a replacement. Um, Warren reminds Vrabel of Vrabel. Well, pretty much. Um, but New England taking Warren. Interesting. Hadn't really seen anybody saying that, but um, hey, good football player, man. And they do need a receiver. And I'm not so that like McMillan's been, and I'm going, I don't know about that. I don't know if New England would take McMillan that high. Um, Hunter could be a possibility if Giants don't take him, and I can't see him make. I can't see Travis Hunter getting out of the top 5 either. Ward, Hunter, Carter, Graham. Yeah, I agree with those 4. Um, I really would love to have any of those 4 because they're really good football players. God knows they kind of fit some needs we need to fix. So, and I'm still a Genty guy. I would throw Genty in there, but definitely take those 4. Bash from TCU catches everything, and I don't know. Yeah, Hakeem saying need a physical chain mover, and I agree with that. And Jack Bash from TCU, excuse me. um, be a big boost to this wide receiver core because yeah, definitely we need it. Now he's not going to bring much in the out. Shouldn't say much. It's not like he's not athletic. He is, but compared to some of the other receivers going in that area, yeah, he's going to give up some athletic ability. But I think what he has more than any of that projected range, and he's in that group of wide receivers. I think you can see him fall from top of the second to middle of the third, all mixed up in there, depending on what everybody's board looks like. But the mentality he has is there's no such thing as a 50-50 ball. In his mind, it's like 80-20 mine. Love that. And he's got great hands and he runs good routes. And like he is going to move the chains for you. I really firmly believe that in the NFL. He may not ever be a 1,200 yard, 12 touchdown guy, but I guarantee he's going to do a lot of the dirty work for you. And he is going to get his yards and he is going to get his touchdowns. Weird sort of way, kind of Hunter Renfro like. The mentality, at least. Yeah, pretty much the usuals. Throwing Mimbow in there. Yeah, I mean, he's an interesting one. Uh, I guarantee you, when it comes to cut dates or free agency, I just feel like all 31 other teams check the Saints waiver wire first to see who they've moved on from or letting walk out the door. Um, so as Hakeem brings up, yeah, the Farm Club, Cincinnati got Hendrickson, Gardner Johnson, Philly, Detroit back to Philly, wins the Super Bowl ring. Yeah, the list is just incredible. And look, Paulson Adebo was of all the guys we brought back, through restructures and all that other stuff, and he was the one I was just looking at. Really felt like if we could get him back, we wouldn't be having the cornerback conversation necessarily. him and McKinstry, Taylor, we're good. Actually, we may be having more conversations about safeties at that point because then suddenly that would be a very pressing, and it still kind of is for our defensive backfield. Um, to the mixture, I'm more or less nice to everyone. Mm, Nolan Smith. Oh, linebacker from well, kind of because he's going to be, but no. The two that came out with Georgia, I thought N'Kobe Dean. That was around 2022, the same draft as Trey. Uh, not Trey. Hutchinson and all those defensive guys that are all over the league blowing up right now. Georgia had two linebackers, and I thought one of them was the guy next to Vaughn in Philly. I think the other one went to Green Bay. He's been playing in Green Bay. So like solid guy, but I don't think he's their future. But Vaughn could be. They paid him like he was. So. Mike Buck, huh? You go on blast from the past there. Yeah, that dude could throw the crap out of a football. Didn't know in Mike Buck's case, didn't always know where it was going, but he was going to laser it somewhere. Um, like, I mean, I don't want to bash Jake Hainer. I really, really don't. I liked him. I mean, I really do, and I like some of the stuff he can do. I just don't think he can do enough. Um, just McCord replacing like that arm because we'll see what we can do with it. And McCord may even be made a little more mobile because I think that's the kind of the if Hanner had a cannon or he was more mobile, maybe a different situation. But you're kind of looking at the two things. Look, I need you to be really mobile and accurate, and he is accurate most of the time, or have a cannon and make some big throws downfield. And when you can't do either one in today's modern NFL as a quarterback, it's tough. It's really tough. Yeah, Teron retiring yesterday. I believe it was yesterday. It might have been Saturday. And I would love to get another Teron in. Full disclosure, that kind of, when he retired, kind of reminded me, y'all want a Tim was wrong moment? Here you go. When that whole thing was coming up with Teron Armstead, maybe leaving in free agency, blah, 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 even before he actually ended up leaving and going to Miami, you know, that is an opinion. This was in 2018, 2019, somewhere in there, maybe I think, where, you know, what was his future? Because we just couldn't get full seasons out of him, right? Or he may play in all the games, but he was missing sometimes injury wise, large chunks of a game, and just watching the backup tackle or having to kick Pete over there to bail us out or whatever was happening. So I remember brother-in-law. I don't know if he's in here tonight. He can tell you because I was arguing with him, going, "No, man, look, just let him walk or trade him if you can, or blah blah blah, whatever you're going to do. Give me a damn left tackle that's going to be able to play 16 games and be really, really good." He walked out of here, and we're still looking for the left tackle that's going to play 16 games and really, really good all these years later. So, two things. One, hopefully Fuaga can fit the bill, or if we grab a Campbell and put him at left tackle and Fuaga be the right tackle, we're good at our tackles for years, and that would be nice. But the second thing is, I am not going to bitch about McCoy missing too many games because I just don't want to repeat of the Teron Armstead. Oh my God, it's taken us years to find the guy that's going to replace him, even though he's developing an injury history. The only thing on McCoy is at least try to play 14, as a minimum. That's because I think that's about where Teron was most years, 13, 14 overall. So just to say. Um, Now, saying about smells like Armstead, I don't know if you mean as good as Armstead or as injury prone as Armstead or a combination of both. But again, it's preference and conversation. think this day and age in the NFL, if you get a really good player for like 14 games plus, hopefully more, but if you get a minimum 14 out of them, you're like way ahead of the curve of 'em, especially of our team last year with the way the injury stacked up. I don't even know how to respond to that, Northern. Oh, why Gentry? Okay. Yeah, I just a big knock on Gentry is my God, did they use him an awful lot last year in Boise State? I mean, he was year before was a you know heavy workload, but it wasn't nothing any top college running back wouldn't get. But last year, wow. But he's young. I get it. Nobody is talking about ATN. Like very, very little. And guy is he can run it, he can catch it. He's been a major cog of a really good college football team for a couple of years. Um, Compared to some of the other names that people roll out at running back, uh, and he could be a day three guy. Amazingly enough, that I'm going. I think somebody's going to get a really really good running back at that point. And I got to talk about Cam Scatterboo while we're having this conversation because he's a guy that seems people are like, third round guy. For some people have him rated as the third best running back in the draft. I don't know if I put him third, but I damn well won't have a conversation about it when you're talking about the Ohio State running backs in that mix. Like I said, I like Sampson from Tennessee a lot. And some of those other guys, Cam definitely, Scatterboo should be there. Hey, God, he plays like really for those of us old enough to remember, like like Mike Allstott's is a guy that I just keep looking at and going like he wanted to beat you as a running back, but he wanted to punish you while he was doing it. A little like Taysom's running style, even, And I'm like, but man, Scatterboo does a lot of different things. He's really good pass catcher going. I don't know why he's not in that second high third round conversation like the Ohio State running backs and a few of those other guys. You want to talk about a double dip? We draft Scatterboo and ATN on day 3 and be like, all right, we've got running back. I'm pretty sure we've got running back fixed for a couple of years. Oh man, I am too old to do house parties. Yeah, we definitely need 2 to 3 good drafts, and we also need, I'm going to say, a couple of good free agency periods. But right now, I'd settle a couple that didn't really suck, where you wind up overpaying either somebody to come here or somebody to stay or whatever, um, and getting production. But it was a little better this year than previous couple of years, we think, in some of the moves they made. So hopefully build on that too. But I feel like you can possibly start getting close in 2026. I think the realistic expectation is 2027. But I think you can be competitive. There's a chance we could be competitive this year. I'm just not sold on it. But I feel like by 2026, even kind of doing what we're doing, chance will be better. Gonna have to get that quarterback situation though hammered out once and for all. I do not know how to pronounce his name. I keep seeing it come up, and yeah, he's in the mix too. Bashard Smith, Devin Neal, the guy that runs like he's shot out of a cannon. I think his last name's Blue for Texas in that mix. Would not have a problem with most of those guys. You standard. I hate to say run of the mill NFL running back because it sounds like I'm slighting people. I am not. It is a bitch to be an NFL running back. But the guys that you see around the league and over their careers, they normally play for a couple of different teams. but they all do some things really, really well. And when you get them on um, good teams, they're really, really good and can help you win. I would go with like a Latavius Murray being a similar going. Yeah, I don't know if they were ever really truly the guy because Murray started with the Raiders. Um, but he was part of being a dude like backfield in his time here, both the first and second time, making stuff happen from the running back position. And he'd probably be a guy you would consider somewhere in that range of names. And people around the league not really shoring like a Lat Murray, who exactly he was, unless they unfortunately played against him when he was doing, in his heyday, like the Saints, going, God damn, who's that guy? We thought Kamara was the problem. Look at this guy they're pulling out. I think a lot of those Ranger running backs, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's so deep, that you're going to find some of those guys and go, look, they may not tote the rock 25 or touch it 25 times a game, but they're going to come in and give you 10, 12, 15, and it's going to be some really good touches. And if the defense ain't aware, they're going to hurt them. Safety at Mizzou. I feel like I should know who that is, and I'm drawing a blank. Oh, you talking about what's it, Sebastian Castro? I think that's his name. No, he's Iowa. I'm drawing a blank on who the safety at Mizzou is. If I even knew at all, it might be just one I missed somewhere. God, draft time, the pure number of names you're dealing with. Well, I think your question answers itself, Northern. Trayvon Walker, Nakobe Dean. Okay, two names I'm thinking of. One of them is not in Philly because I thought one of them was. And I thought the other one was in Green Bay. I kind of, for some reason, those two guys just, even when they were playing at Georgia, they just kind of run together as the same super linebacker while they were playing next to each other and kind of carried on to the NFL. He's an interesting one, Will Howard. I don't know. I'm familiar with what he did in Ohio State. And it was a good football team, and he played very, very well while he was doing it. Other than that, I honestly don't know that much about him. And honestly, for a guy just won a national championship, it's almost like nobody really acknowledging he's even in this draft class, to be honest with you. I wish I could say it was 100% right. I just try not to be 100% wrong. Okay. Yeah, that one could have went either way during our conversations. I wasn't 100% sure which way you meant it, but we need a lot of help at guards. Yeah, Emory Jones there. Look, he's another one, Ruiz and Penning. I think that's kind of the two that I come out to from last year where you got better play, obviously, from both of them. Was it more of a scheme fit? Was that, the Benton influence and what they were doing? Did they finally figure it out? Who knows? I feel like we can. I really think we can trust Fuaga, at least from what we've seen, as long as there's no regression. We know as long as McCoy's healthy, he's probably the best center in the league. And if he ain't the best, he's in the conversation. But now you're looking at guards and right tackle. And I'd like to feel confident and comfortable at those three positions. But honestly, right now, I do not. So even that's why I like Campbell. They say, well, you might have to kick in and play guard. It still helps us. I still think there's a chance if that happens, we still get better on the offensive line. I got nothing going. Technically it's open. But I got some stuff I got to go in there and fix and all. So that's kind of on the back burner a little bit. Probably roll that up somewhere getting close to draft time. Along with some other stuff that should be coming together right around draft time. Donovan Jackson, can't believe I talked about him. He is a guy that I would be totally on board with taking at 40. Totally. 100%. Gray Zabel wouldn't have a problem. I don't think Gray Zabel is getting out of the first round. It seems like probably a late first round pick. But depending on who we take it on and how it's looking, if you want it to convince me, look, Maybe we got to package some picks up and jump back into the end of the first, take 40, use 40 and some other picks and jump back into the back end of the first round to grab Gray's Able. I think it might be a pretty good idea. Um, man, he was eating defensive linemen alive. Tape from, I forget which one, North Dakota State. I forget which one, which everybody's kind of going, yeah, but to FBS, FCS, whatever the non-playoff team division of NCAA football is, as well, not the top level, even though they win national championships at that level every year. Then he shows up in Mobile and just he's guys on the defensive line. He is just stonewalling them, whether they had him at tackles, guard, he even played some center. I'm like, man, what's not to love about that guy? And I ain't convinced he's not going to go higher than that projected late first, but it seems like that's kind of where everybody's thinking he's hitting. Allstott was the man. It's Devin, possibly. I don't know, major, but maybe some injury. I don't know. There's a couple running backs down in that range that, kind of fall into some injury issue categories, which is maybe why they're down there instead of further up the list. Yeah, that's 100% true. Can't have a second good draft till we have a first. Yeah, I got to try him at tackle, Rosenfield. I got to give him that look, especially he was a left tackle in college. Fuaga was a right tackle in college. That's kind of where they played. And Campbell was another one that a lot of people thought would be a tackle in college, but likely a guard. I mean, this was going before this year and making a transition to guard sometime at his professional career. Um, I gotta see. I gotta see if Campbell is your starting left tackle and Fuaga is going to be the right tackle and go. We're going to bookend this crap for the next decade with those two guys. I got to find out. But yeah, I really don't have a problem if and everybody seems to agree that if you kick him inside the guard, he's going to be fine. It's going to be a really good guard. It's like, well, the position thing is, I've heard people talking about it. You just can't draft a guard at 9. And I'm like, why not if he's going to be a starter and make you better for 5, 6, 7 years? Don't see a problem with that just because it happens to be a guard. Okay, Devin Neal. Slow. That's not great for a running back, but it's not the end all be all if you're not super fast either. Well, being awful in pass pro, that's a lot of rookie running backs. Sometimes you have to deal with. Sometimes, if you think you can't fix it, then you're not touching them in the draft. Come here. He's whining again. Yeah, this conversation just having it. It would be great if Campbell works out. You get Campbell, he works out at left, and Fuaga at right. But you're locking him down for a long period of time. If that were to happen, if you would lock down to, you damn right, Penning, Ruiz, Saldivari, and Redunce, the guy we just signed, we're having an opening competition at guard. Whatever two of you dudes are the best that are going to lock down that spot. I think that would be the way to go. And I go back. If you want to talk about drafts too, and just problems that the Saints have had, is kind of this. It goes all the way back to the beginning of this conversation with, hey, do you have a plan? Well, if you're drafting a guy as a project in the first round, a la Trevor Penning, that a lot of people are saying, yeah, he played left tackle at a small school college. He is going to be a good run blocker. Not sure about his pass blocking. Not sure about him being a left tackle. Can probably play guard. What everybody was saying when we drafted him. We just went ahead and threw him out at left tackle. I don't know if anybody even worked with him on the. That's what it looked like. Like he just was lost. Develop him, have a plan, but also have a fallback plan. Even if they were trying to develop him, which I saw no evidence of that coaching staff on the offensive line, but even if they were trying and it was failing, how about the backup plan? Like everybody was saying at draft time, going, hey, he might have to kick in and play guard. Kick him in and let's see what he looks like in guard for great. So I'm just going, hey, look, these ex tackle guys, if you think you can get them inside and play guard and get them to play well and do what you need to do to win games, yeah, go ahead, do it. Uh, yeah, I don't know about the height thing or not. I'll always get a little iffy when it comes to stuff like that because I know there are tackles who they've said that about, like I said, end up getting kicked inside and being pretty good. So, but if you've got your two tackle spots locked down, kicking pain, you got nothing to lose. Yeah, it's and look, that goes to our new sports science medicine guy that we hired away from Philly. Uh, Maybe some kind of way it'll work out where we can prevent a lot of these stupid injuries, especially the soft tissue issues like he had. And when they get them, we can get them rehabbed and physically ready to go and healthy and not have them re-injure it like happened to Miller on a regular basis because a bunch of players fell into that category. But it seemed to fix itself when we got a new interim head coach who said, "Hey, we're going to have an activation stretching period before practicing games." Go figure. So I would like to think a lot of those issues are going to get cleaned up. The major ones that just happen, the really bad ones, I don't know how much you can really do about that because I think they just kind of happen mostly because of bad luck. But if there's any advantage or anything that they can get back from, or even if it's the rehab from something like that, you know, so be it. But I think we did a piss poor job of that the last couple of years, and hopefully the new guy running in the department will fix all that. Yeah, the thing is, I don't think we're picking up Penning's option. I'm pretty sure this is last year. So whatever he wants to do in his NFL career, he's Penning's pretty much better show up and do it this year. I feel like has a couple of teams in that area or a little before. It's Cincinnati's around there somewhere. Dear God, they need to fix that offensive line. At times, I remember watching last year going, and even though they had a better season and a better offense, just at times going, thank God we don't have Cincinnati's offensive line because, man, quarterbacks and running backs get hit an awful lot in the backfield behind that line. Yeah, yeah. Hillis was that guy too. I've been a couple around the league, I'm like, but I think people don't think he's athletic because he's not smooth athletic when he's running. It looks a lot like Peyton Hillis and Mike Allstott, but Jesus is it effective. And I'm just going, look, I don't care how it looks. I want it to be productive and effective. And I think he has shown he can do that. And he can do it running and catching it. Yeah, moving guards. I think definite getting to be open tryout. Or at least, if you're going to roll out with Saldivari and Ruiz as your on paper first teamers, go 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 hard with some people behind them that are going to push them. Make them really want to see a fight at guards and go, look, two best guys going to earn the spots there, but we'll see. Yeah, I think he could. I know they're the arm thing and all that, the arm length, and could be an issue. But it's nice to know that if he doesn't, or the run blocking, uh, you know, the greatest run blocker in the world, but it'll have to get better at that. But I think he's the type of guy probably will. Um, so yeah, we need a left guard, and as it's been brought up, we may need a right guard. We'll find out. But I do like Donovan Jackson, the fact that he can play both. Um, he is the true swing tackle, and the thing was that he was a very good left guard until I believe it was Simmons got hurt for Ohio State and was going to miss the rest of the year, and they just kicked him over. He kind of kicked some ass there too at left tackle halfway through the season. So I mean, there's just a lot to like about Donovan Jackson and bringing him in, and I would cheer if he's there at 40 and we take him. I really would. Yeah, Landon Jackson he's a big guy with a big motor at edge, and I don't know if he's going to play quote unquote, but in a mixed front, yeah, three technique could play more if you're going to be more of an even front as a defensive end, and he's probably about the size of Curtis Granderson, actually, maybe a little bigger. In fact, he's probably pretty good to Curtis Granderson, but and no disrespect to Curtis Granderson, um, I don't know if he's got Jackson's motor because I mean that's just one of those. It's insane if you watch him play that how he can go. Yeah, they need depth at a lot of spots, but yeah, definitely offensive line. And I feel like some of the guys like Redunds, and I feel like they're kind of more possible depth pieces than starters, but yet I have to get probably some starting time out of them one way or the other because I just ain't no way our whoever our five started or you're going to get all five of them to get through all 17 games. So that just doesn't happen anywhere in the NFL. The Saints are all about big guys. Period. Like that old Bill Parcells, big guys win football games. It used to be true. Probably, maybe still is. I don't know, but ain't the leagues rolling around showing, hey, yeah, you don't all have to be gigantic, huge dudes to win football. You can figure out ways to win with small athletic guys if you need to. In fact, sometimes that's the only way you're going to win is using guys like that. So I kind of wish the Saints would get off that kick a little bit. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Lots of needs. And we've been needing them. That's the problem. I think talking about it earlier, we just didn't address them in the past as much as we probably should have, and now it's coming back around on us. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. There was some stuff going around with him. He had to take basically sabbatical, take some time off, kind of get his head right about some stuff that happened earlier before he became an NFL player. It's a little PTSD thing, I think they kind of mentioned. That's going to help. So hopefully you get the guy that was at LSU in 2019 and kind of when he first arrived to Kansas City, um, kind of get that guy back. And he hasn't, I mean, he really hasn't played much the last couple of years. So it's not like you're getting an older guy with a lot of tread on him. You're just getting a guy, been through a little bit of stuff he had to deal with, kind of trying to get back on track. I really want to see him get a fair shot, and see if he's got that, what he kind of showed to get him to be a first round pick um, by Kansas City. Get that back. That would be a godsend find if you get that in your backfield. Yeah, but after a couple of years, I played center in college and they moved me to the guard thing. Look, sorry. They're playing at guard. You either got to get good at guard or we've got to find another guard, you know? And if you want to kick him back to backup center, I wouldn't have a problem with that if as long as he can play backup center. But one of the things I just question is how much he's physically. You see him sometimes get physically dominated on that line of scrimmage, especially prior to last year. Um, Seems to be very athletic in that wide zone scheme. You know, we all remember the play. He's screaming down the field with Alvin Kamara, but just straight up so many times getting run over. And I'm going, if he's getting run over, it's hard to hide him if you're going to go gap and man scheme because he's going to be butting heads, looking at guys trying to run over him or through him pretty much the whole game. He's not kind of doing all that zone stuff. So it's a hard fix with him. Just gonna have to get in there and just be the guy, kind of. Yeah, well, it's fine when you have a solid roster and you can get away with it one time trading up, guy bust. It's like, but our roster's good. See, and this goes back to the trade down, get a little extra draft capital philosophy. Like we should be in more of a situation of looking in certain areas to trade down, not up. But Mickey's going to be Mickey. I'm not about ready to take a short nap after about an hour and 45 minutes. I'm about ready to call it a night and go to bed. And I kind of think we're caught up here for the most part. Yeah. Look, I am of the opinion I'm one of those people that over the last few years, everybody in the NFC South has been getting whether steadily better or slightly better than us kind of every year. We're playing chase up or playing catch up. We're chasing them. That's what I meant by chase up. Just makes my metaphors there. But can't keep doing that. I mean, at some point, they got to recognize that, stop. Get some young talent to players, develop them. But I think one of the thing is you can't keep repeating the mistake anymore of overvaluing your first round picks for whatever reason that you do it and let the guys that weren't first or round picks that start outplaying them, let them leave the building. That's the real killer in all this. Bad enough your drafts weren't as good and you're trading up and all, but man, when you finally find somebody and develop them, you got to keep them around. So, yeah, I'm not going to click on that one. Yeah, Northern, we're having fun. Too much more fun than the law should allow. So I'm going to have to shut this down. And it is getting to be about time to go tonight. Like I said, to bed, and I got a cranky cat that's been driving me nuts. I got to go see what's going on with him. But I think overall, hey, just to sum it up and put a bow on it and wrap it up, I think you got a lot more options and a lot more problems to be thinking about at number 9 than taking Shedeur Sanders. And something we talked about a bit tonight, and something I was also going to do a video on later, is the fact that trading down should be a real thing when it's necessary to do so. Even if you're trading down and then picking up draft capital in 2026, it doesn't matter. You have to start finding and adding these young players and developing them. So we take Sanders at 9. Like I said, my only move is to back it up and go, okay, our super awesome offensive staff, quarterback driven, because that's basically the top 3 guys in the offense are all ex-NFL quarterbacks. That's what they want to do. We're getting on board, getting fully behind it. But me personally, no, I cannot get fully on board behind it. So as long as they're not relying on me personally to be the guy that's going to cheerlead the way through this, it's going to be, it is what it is. I'm interested to really see over the next roughly 2 weeks is if this is real, Sanders at 9 to the Saints, or if this is some more of the, as my buddy Scott called it, the lion season, Everybody's lying to everybody right now, whether it's the clubs or the players and their representatives, because everybody's playing an angle at this point. So when this stuff comes out, is it real or is it bullshit? Who really knows? So I am interested to see if it's real. So that I am going to bid. It is definitely at the hour 45 minute, and I don't even think I ate dinner tonight, so I'm gonna have to go eat something. But I thank everybody from for joining. Really, really had a lot of fun tonight doing this, and very, very short version. Not that this affects anything you see. And Northern kind of mentioned it about the online shop and some of the merch and all. Got to do a little revamp. So we started now. So, like I said, things are going to look a little different until I figure everything out exactly how I want it. But I'll still be filming in the process, kind of adding a little more. And the biggest thing that I'm working on and trying to add is what the exact schedule of videos. I'm going to bring the long form podcast back. We've been dealing kind of shorter version, and sometimes that may come in a live form like tonight, and sometimes it may be in a video form, and it'll probably stay right around Monday. But for right now, it's going to be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're going to stick to that schedule. I'm going to try to stick to getting the video out around noonish each day. Next live stream, I don't know if we'll get one in next week. We're damn sure doing it for the first round of the draft. So I guarantee you book that somewhere. I've got a few more things to figure out how to get a TV in here where I'll actually be able to see it, or at least another monitor. Um, so once I get that figured out, we'll be good to go. But we're definitely, I don't know if I'll do the whole first round, but we're going to roll through the Saints pick from pick 1 to pick 9. And if we trade back, we'll all do a dance, and then we'll try to stick it out and see where we wind up and who we end up with. But that's definitely going to be set in stone. So on draft day, we'll be here hoping Mickey and the boys don't screw that shit up. So till I see you next time, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.